So welcome all. Uh, Good morning to most, but I know Switzerland is in the house, so late afternoon, I think. Yeah, lovely to see the names. All right, let's sit. Maybe for this first minute, just don't do anything. In a sense, see how many things you might stop doing, how many things you think meditation asked you to start doing. Whatever consciously can be stopped, just stop. It's a certain kind of confidence that uh, freedom is on offer, that there's already goodness here, that it's not the self and the self-efforting that claws its way to freedom. Sometimes our doing, our effort, our intention, our direction of attention, all of this actually crystallizes the sense of self, sense of the meditator pulling the strings behind the scene. And so we experiment with relaxing all the conscious impulses to do something rather than to trust something. If there's something you can't stop doing, that's okay. Don't double down and try to stop what you cannot stop. Just practice relaxing the deep impulse of doing, performing. Now let us practice doing something, but almost like with the spirit of non-doing. Doing something, but somehow doing it in a different way than we've tended to do it. Somehow not repeating that kind of subtly desperate energy of doingness, but instead very openly receiving your breathing. And don't congeal sense of you, the meditator, behind that receptivity. Just receive this beautiful rhythmic flow of our breathing. We're careful not to source our meditation instructions from places, voices within us that are impatient, unwise, moralistic. We're not letting the superego do our meditation. That's not the headquarters. But we instead source our counsel and motivation from something deeper in us, more intuitive and embodied. And so it's safe to ignore every voice that's harshly critical or full of self or full of compulsivity, doing this. We just find the thread of our practice elsewhere. Okay, so we'll continue on with this interpersonal theme, and today is something like honoring neurosis, the neurosis of the other, honoring dukkha, suffering. So sometimes I've had the thought, I just did a retreat on the Four Noble Truths with a friend and colleague Inez Friedman at IRC. And we did the Four Noble Truths, but sometimes I've thought the first Noble Truth sort of contains the other three. You know, the truth of suffering, cause, you know, that there's a cessation of the cause and there's a path. But the first truth, you know, the truth of dukkha, usually rendered as suffering, that is no joke. And we may say, yeah, I know suffering. Everyone knows suffering. That's why we're here. That's why we're practicing. And I've suffered and you've suffered, and yeah, we know it, but do we comprehend it? The Buddha said, comprehend dukkha. Do we realize it? Realize it as an insight. And this is not a process that is for the faint of heart, and we actually really have to stop fighting it, at least momentarily, to comprehend it. And yet, most everything in us rallies the troops to fight. And so it's actually a major project to open to one's suffering. But sometimes the suffering of the other is even more evocative. And it can be evocative in a way that opens us to a kind of very deep compassion, something in just seeing, you know, a loved one suffering. It's like, oh yeah, may you be free. But sometimes our care gets tangled up with a sense of control, with some strand of our own clinging. And so the question, what would it be to follow the Buddha's instruction of comprehending suffering for another's life? And we've entrusted our heart to another, either by choice or by birth. And that essentially means that all of their suffering feels like our business, right? When you're a child, right, the suffering of a parent has huge implications for your own safety. It's not really a cause for compassion. Their pain is destabilizing. It's a threat. You know, I don't know an exact moment, but I kind of remember the sense of being, you know, a little bit shattered when I had the kind of fantasy of my parents' omnipotence, you know, was dashed. And it was like, okay, that fantasy crumbles, and then the recognition of like, we're all this vulnerable, right? And there's something like the echoes of that destabilization still haunt my love for adults now. And their suffering does something of that sort to my heart. And so there can be this deep wobble when we see loved ones in pain, when we see their neurosis, when we see them acting out their greed, hate, delusion. And just like goodness can kind of resonate with goodness, we feel that often. We feel that in the Dharma field. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, our hearts resonate. We see somebody, see the beauty of someone's heart, and it just does something to us, reverberates. And in the same way, like two bells resonating, suffering can resonate with suffering. Neurosis can resonate with neurosis. Something about what they're doing lands in a certain way in my heart that spins me even more deeply than if that suffering were purely my own. And researchers have done, brain imaging when seeing a loved one suffer with some kind of pain task, some modest amount of pain, but partners in the scanner, and you're sort of somehow seeing uh, a, uh, a loved one suffer, and a lot of the brain lights up, regions associated with understanding, the inner states of others, mentalization with emotional resonance, some of the same parts of the brain that would happen if we were getting the pain. Mm, Kittisaro and Tanisara, the monastics for many years. Many of you may know them, have sat with them, but I heard this response of what is it like to what is it like to be in relationship? You're both these Dharma people. What's it like to be in relationship, having been monks and nuns for a long time? And I think Kittisaro's response was, it's like relationship is like two people under one robe. Two people under one robe. They're like very potent answer, to recognize like, okay, what as a monastic was okay, I was working with this system. It's now working with two people under one robe. And we know that seeing suffering in our own life can get us scrambling to reorder circumstances. And when we see the suffering of someone we care about deeply, it's the same. We often have to we work with the impulse to reorder them, who they are, and compassion devolves in something like this desperation to change them, to make them grow. This is not actually compassion. This is a certain kind of compulsivity, because I can see, oh, it's my aversion or fear or worry or something is driving the show. Are they going to be okay? Or sometimes it's even more basic. It's like, is this who I love? You know, we love other imperfect beings, right? But at some level, I think what I want in all of my relationships, I want them to be fully enlightened arhats. That's what I want from everyone in my life. Me, I can be just like a basket of defilements. But you, I need you actually to be free from greed, hate, and delusion. Then maybe I would not be triggered. That's kind of the fantasy. So we know when we respond to our own suffering with that kind of desperate, scramble, it's often unproductive. And somehow it's harder to resist that when it's interpersonal suffering. And it maybe takes a kind of balance of melting and freezing, melting and freezing. What I was talking about, I think yesterday, So we melt in the sense that we become clearly aware of their pain. We almost inhabit their mind. This is empathic connection. But then there's some freezing too. There's some freezing too. So in the melting, this line that I quote often from a novelist who was asked, if and how literature changes people. And he responded, I don't think people change very much. To the extent they change at all, it's because of some encounter that has love in it. People change at all, it's because of some encounter that has love in it. We know it's hard to change. We know that well. It's hard to change. It's hard to grow at depth. And if we're going to do it, love will be involved. And the kind of cruel, perverse irony is that the people we most want to change are often the ones we're most enraged by, even though we know anger is the single worst way to get someone to deeply change. We might shape them momentarily, but that's not a good behavioral modification program to run them on anger and our judgment and harshness. So there's love, there's melting, but then we freeze too. If their pain freeze in a good sense, not in the kind of dissociative sense, like freeze in the sense that if their pain becomes pure emotional contagion, it just spins us too much. And so there's some sense of boundaries too. We care for the other as if their pain were our own, but without losing the as if condition. Carl Rogers said something like that. And so this is the equanimity side of relating to their pain, to their neurosis, to their habits that they can't shake out of. This is love in the face of helplessness. I cannot rescue you from this suffering. I desperately want to. I would even be angry if I could do it, if the anger would work. But I know that's a dead end. I can't. And so the equanimity needs to counterbalance the compassion. Otherwise, the compassion can devolve into an insistence that someone else change. That's not what's called for. Deep, loving acceptance. We forgive, which really means just to understand their inner life, to open to our own ambivalence, that we must tolerate the mixed feelings we have about any other person. We must tolerate that. Maybe there's some sense of loss, of grief, and we open to that rather than the anger and the kind of pseudo compassion, which is often some attempt just to discharge the energy that feels like too much for our system. Can we soothe our own heart? It's not self-indulgent to move into some measure of self-compassion when you see the other suffering, because if we're spun, our interventions will always be misdirected. And so we tend to our own heart, the deeply evocative pain, of witnessing a loved one suffer. And that love is soothing. It weakens the kind of compulsive pseudo-compassion, compulsive interventionist spirit of our love lives with partners or parents or children or other loved ones. So again, Leonard Cohen, I wish there were a treaty we could sign. I do not care who takes this bloody hill. I'm angry and I'm tired all the time. I wish there was a treaty. I wish there was a treaty. Uh, Between your love and mine. uh, What would that be? A treaty between your love and mine. In the realm of relationship, that's a deep question. So I offer this for your consideration, and we'll gather back tomorrow. Tomorrow. Okay.